Welcome to the Visualize Meditations podcast, hosted by your gal pal, Sasha Patil, a Chopra-certified meditation teacher, athlete, and adventurer. This is a place where high performance and health meets fulfillment and fun. Each week, I'm bringing you guided visualization meditations and honest solo sessions where I share personal development, my most unhinged stories, and intimate interviews. Whether we're chatting wellness, achievement, or building an aligned community, we're here to create the life of your dreams and have an absolute blast doing it. So my guest today has an absolutely incredible story that bridges the gap between modern creativity and ancient spiritual mastery. He began his journey in Mumbai as an artist, photographer, and journalist before completely shifting his path to dive into the world of Kundalini and traditional yoga. He went to train under traditional sensei from Bihar and met his guru Swami Anand, becoming a lineage holder and receiving the spiritual title of Yogi Raj, which means master among yogis. His journey has taken him from Mumbai to New Zealand and now to California, right here in LA. He's a TEDx speaker and the CEO of World Yoga Federation and founder of Venice Yoga Festival. Please welcome to the show, Yogi Raj Utkarsh.
Thank you.
Oh my God, of course. I'm so excited to get into it today. So before diving completely into yoga and meditation and your lineage, you started with a creative career in Mumbai as like art, graphic design, photography, journalism. How did that artistic lens prepare you for this kind of mystical and mindfulness world?
So I always felt like there was more to life when I was a kid. And I had some experiences which I didn't know back then they were experiences. I thought I was imagining, as a child in my fantasy land. And as I grew up in Mumbai. And in Mumbai, that time, one of the things that made a big impact on me was the communal riots, where there were people killing each other based on their religion. And what impacted me most in that period was a couple of incidences where my parents and all our parents came to school to grab us and take us home because it wasn't safe to be out on the street. And then another incident was when all the men of the apartment building, they all came down and they all started fashioning weapons and sticks and gathering bricks and putting up fencing, and somebody was on a terrace in every apartment building with a plate and a whistle, like a warning in case a mob was passing through. And people having conversations about, removing people's name from their nameplates, It's not common here, but in India, in many apartments, everybody has their name in the bottom of the apartment so that people can't identify your religion, right? Because there was everyone in my apartment and that whole neighborhood was very cosmopolitan and there were all kinds of people there. And so those things really made me not believe that there is a God. Or if there is one, that's definitely not what I'm into, because I only understood God through religion. And then as I grew older, when I started being creative, and I was very rational in the sense, I think you're born, you live, you die, and that's it. And what happened was, I went to JJ School of Art for a short while. I was very arrogant young guy, but while I was there, I was also getting some gigs outside art school. And there's a very important person, Dilip Chitre, who is a very renowned literary writer in India. And so I met him before I joined art school, and it was a very hard art school to get into. And so he said to me, don't go to art school. And I was like, I worked 2 years to prepare for the entrance exam to get in, right? I'm not going to leave the seat, which very few people get. And I thought he was like, I thought he was just an old man who's just lost it. I didn't know how revered and renowned he was. He was my friend's grandfather, but I didn't know that aspect of his life. And then when I went to art school, I realized he was right. And so when I reached back to him, so he gave me, and I took a break from art school,
Okay.
and he gave me a room in his house as my studio. And Dilip was also a translator of Tukaram. Tukaram is one of the most revered saints of Maharashtra in India. And he wrote these poems in times of famine. They're called abhangas, where he talks about devotion to the divine and to the Lord, but also talks about life in where he was, and how. And back then, people often considered him the village idiot. Now he's revered. So Dilip introduced me to the Karam and the kind of circle around that, and then I got a job with Harmony Art Magazine, Harmony Art Foundation, and Harmony Magazine, which was run by Tina Ambani. And in that process, I saw and I engaged with the cream of the art world in India, and this was one of India's largest art collections. And I found that to be lacking in terms of a lot of it was who you are connected with, hobnobbing and all of that. And even the question arises to me, so what? You made a beautiful piece of art, it's very inspiring, but what next? And at that same time, I started doing Kundalini Yoga.
Okay.
And I had some very strong experiences as soon as I started. And in that process, I asked the question, who am I? I asked the question, what is the source of all creativity? And the answer I got was the source of all creativity is the source of creation. And so then I decided to dedicate my life to trying to understand God and trying to understand what is this creation, who am I, why am I here, what's my purpose.
Was there a specific moment that shifted for you, or do you feel like it was just through your practice that it just kind of developed slowly, like a slow burn?
I think it's a combination. It was a combination of doing the practice. I had some experiences like when I went for the Kundalini Yoga class, and I was really skeptical about it. A friend forced me to go for it. And when I was sitting at the back of the class, I was focusing all my energy at the master, and I was making fun of him in my head.
Yeah.
Because in India, you have a lot of holy men, a lot of God men, and a lot of people wearing robes, and a lot of them are not really all that. It's more external. But as I was mocking this person in my head very aggressively, I had an experience where the whole room blacked out, and I was surrounded by nothing.
Whoa.
And just black, up, down, left, right. And the only awareness I had was that I am there in this space, and I could hear a faint voice of that master. And then I started freaking out because didn't know what I was totally panicking, and eventually I started going, sorry, please bring me back. And that's when I slowly came back to the room, and then I went to that camp. And shortly after that, I had many more experiences which led me to question reality itself. And I remember, so I think all of that led up to the specific moment where I remember actually sitting in the office on a Saturday. We worked back then on Saturdays, half day, but still we had to work. And a lot of people had taken off, and I was just hanging out in the office and doing some artwork on Adobe Illustrator. And at that moment, this question popped into my head. I remember that moment very clearly, is what is the source of all creativity? And the answer was that is creation. And so I knew that that's what I want to explore.
Wow. Is this experience the same one that you had with sannyasi?
With a sannyasi from Bihar, yeah.
Okay, so
he
that
was
the
a master
moment.
from Bihar, from the Bihar tradition.
Yeah.
He was living in Mumbai then. And so this is my first class with him.
Okay, and that's when you had this kind of experience. So what was the transition between you working on this Saturday, having this realization that you wanted to spend your life in pursuit of this and transitioning to apprenticing and studying under your master. What did that transition look like, and what was the most grounding and unexpected lesson you feel like you learned from that period?
So I think it started because I started after that Kundalini workshop, had some other experiences which I could not rationalize. And some of which I shared with my friend's mother, who was the one who introduced the guru to everyone. And so she said, I don't know what you're talking about. I need to reach out to him, but sounds like something's working from the practice, and she reached out to him, and he was very casual about it. He's like, oh yeah, it started for him. It's all right. Tell him to do some yoga. He'll be fine. And yeah, my whole reality is crumbling. And so he said to come to a class that he didn't really take on people like that. He asked me to come to a class of his once a week, which was a teacher training program he was running. And I said, I'm not interested in being a teacher. So he said through this auntie of mine, saying that, tell him to just come and sit. And he said that I needed purification. I needed to do some intensive yoga practice. And so I went very suspiciously. I used to sit in the corner of the room and just observe. And I found every occasion to interrupt and ask and test the master. And he was really patient with me. And, he would answer or not, but I appreciated his mannerism. And then being in that space, I started doing the yoga. And what happened is eventually, there were all these other people who were very affluent, who were his disciples. I was I did have a job, but I was from a middle class family. And so, his fees were quite high comparatively. And he then said, you know what, he said to the auntie, he can do some work for us. And in that process, I started just hanging out, of helping them with whatever they needed, with their work. And and then in that process, I started, that is where the real learning happens, and assisting him in some practices. And then through that, I think that meeting him and going through that phase was the preparation to meet my guru. Because that 4.5 years of that, with then eventually meeting my master.
So what was that moment like, meeting your master? Can you bring us back to that specific moment?
Sure. So it was quite funny. I was sitting on my computer and looking for something called Yoga Alliance, which is an American organization, because someone invited me to come and teach in New York to some doctors, because I had a very successful yoga therapy practice back in India. And people would all come with problems that doctors had given up on, and they would get some solutions. And so in that process, they wanted a certificate. And I was like, yeah, I'm doing a training like where he's training, but my real training is that my apprenticeship doesn't really, how do you ask for a certificate for something like that? And that guy said, there's an organization called Yoga Alliance, reach out to them. And I reached out to them, and there were two. There was one in America, there was one in UK. And both these organizations started asking me absurd questions like, how many hours have you trained? And for me, that was absurd. Like, how do you count the hours of training? That is there a specific amount? It's about the consciousness. And then I put my hours, and it was tens and thousands of hours, because that was my life, 6-7 days a week, teaching, sometimes morning to evening. And then you do the work with the master. And then that's karma yoga. And in that process also there's teaching. And in addition to that, there is Kundalini is not a process that you only do on the mat. when you start opening your energy centers, it transfers into other parts of your life. And if you're someone who's completely dedicated your whole being to that, then you're 24/7 living in that experience. And so it was absurd. And if I just counted the hours, it was coming to like some 10,000 hours, I don't know, some obscene number of hours. And in that process, I started getting frustrated. I said, I need to speak to someone, because this is before FaceTime, I guess. And I called, I Googled, and I found this number. And this number was an Indian number. And I said, Yoga Alliance International, India. And I said, whoa, these guys have an Indian office? And then, firstly, I was really disappointed that as an Indian person learning from an Indian master in an Indian lineage, I had to go to some American organization to accredit me. And so that concept did not sit well with me. And I called this number, and this person picked up, and I really, really grilled them. And I said, who are you? How can you, certify Indian people? You don't, that time they did, I'm not sure, they maybe didn't even have, or they had very little pranayam in their curriculum and stuff like that. And so I was really like quizzing this person with all kinds of things, saying, what gives you the authority to certify me? And at the end, this person very politely answered all my questions. And then he said, at the end, he said, son, I think you've got the wrong number, but you're talking to Swami Vidyanand. I'm the founder of Yoga Alliance International, which is an Indian organization, not the American one. And then he went on to say some things about my life and my practice that I had not shared with anyone, with even the master that I was apprenticing.
Wow.
And that really struck me, and he was very casual about it, but he told me in no uncertain terms what I needed to do for my spiritual progress and where I was stuck. And he said, I can't do this over the phone for you. You need to come and meet me and spend 10 days learning from me, and then you'll be fine. And so, and then I'll give you whatever certificate you want. And so now I wasn't interested in the certificate anymore, because after hanging up with this person on the phone, I was in a state of absolute joy. And I could not understand why I was feeling so good.
Yeah.
Just by talking to him. And this was so magical. And so then we kind of texted over a few months till he told me, I couldn't go to Delhi because I had just put in whatever money I had earned from I had a flourishing private practice of being a yoga teacher in Mumbai. And so I'd do corporates, high net worth individuals, that kind of stuff. And so I thought, you know what? I spend my whole week traveling here, there. If I can just be in one place and teach once in the morning, once in the evening, 4 days a week, I can make twice as much money without having to run around.
Yeah.
Big mistake. So I just took all my money and I put it in this studio by renting this small space which was a kind of a small event center in my neighborhood. And literally nobody came for my sessions, and I could not understand why, right? And now I feel so grateful for that, because that opened up my calendar completely. And after doing this for about a month, and I said, you know what, I've already paid the rent and I've decided to do this. So every morning I canceled my evening class, and every morning I would go and sit there for an hour, saying that if no one comes, I will do practice.
Yeah.
And so in that process, then Swamiji messaged me saying he's going to be in Pondicherry for a month. So I went to see him for 10 days, And so that was my initial thing. Once I met him, it was like we always knew each other. I got off the rickshaw, the auto rickshaw. I got off at he had rented a guest house.
Okay.
He rented out the whole place for himself and his students. And so when I got off the rickshaw, there was this man in a lungi standing. Yeah. And immediately I knew who he was. I just went and I said, Namaste Swamiji, and I touched his feet. And we hardly talked much. He kind of indicated where I should go without saying too many words. And I just went to what became my room then. And he didn't communicate much verbally, but there was a lot of communication happening non-verbally. And then I just knew, yeah, this is my guru, and this is my life now. And yeah, that's how we got connected.
It's actually really funny. That's really funny. And also I see a pattern there too of questioning the authority, being like, like, what is all of this?
Yeah.
What gives you the authority to teach me? Or definitely seen that come up in your story so far, which is really interesting. But wow, what a funny story of how you met your guru. And then you trained under your guru, and this is when you started when you started learning about Thai meditation and things like that? Okay. So what makes this system of Thai meditation unique compared to the mainstream mindfulness or meditation styles popular in the West today?
Sure. That's a great question, actually. Not only the commercial kind of mindfulness and meditation, but even traditional systems. If you look at the mainstream mindfulness and all of these things, they are all kind of extracts of traditional systems repackaged. There's very little, I would say, if at all, new things. It's all people, especially from the West, who have taken Indic or Eastern wisdom and then repackaged it to make it what people, I noticed in LA, the word is accessible, right? And for me, often, not always, but often that word comes with the points that, okay, we're going to remove the spiritual aspects, we're going to focus only on the technique and the mental kind of things, one or two mental things that we're going to cherry pick from the whole system. Okay. So that way I find that modern systems are often very limited, often created by individuals who have access to people, to publication, but they don't have access to consciousness. There are some really amazing folks out there, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it is very superficial study of something, or going to India, studying something, and then repackaging it. And now more and more it's becoming people want to watch YouTube videos, people want to follow, right? And apps and all of these things. And what is missing in that process is the live energy of a human being who has their energy centers open. When you practice with someone like that, there's a very different experience to the practice. Whereas on the other hand, traditional systems go the other way. They're very ascetic, the opposite. So there's like non-commercialism, in the Bihar tradition, it's kind of shunned upon. If you're trying to make money from yoga, that's like, ooh, that's not the right thing to do. And in any ascetic tradition. And also these systems were created some hundreds, some thousands of years ago when the human lifestyle was different, right? We rose with the sun, we slept with the sun. You wanted water, you had to go to the well or the river and fetch it.
Yeah.
Now, if I want water, I walk 10 feet and there's a magic button or a lever that gives me an endless supply, right? And so the way we can stay up 24 hours if we have the capacity. That wasn't possible always. And so as a result, the human beings have changed. And so the practice also needs to change. Another difference in traditional yoga, the goal is liberation. Right? You go and you're talking about the chakras, they talk about going through each energy center and leaving the body through your sahasrara. Whereas Sri Aurobindo, who Swamiji is inspired by, and he explains in his yoga, in integral yoga, a different kind of yoga. Where instead of ascension, he's talking about the descent of a higher divine consciousness into matter, into material life. Which is different from being spiritual and living a material life, but actually having a higher energy descend and work through that. And so how time meditation is different from these systems is that we do dynamic movement with mantras, with asanas, with breathing simultaneously. Normally you do your breathing, then you do your postures, then you do your mantra, and then you do your shavasana. That's the kind of practice.
Yeah.
Here we combine all of them simultaneously. And there's a whole new philosophy that Swamiji has shared and revealed, whereby normally you talk about the energy centers going one after the other, right? Muladhara, second chakra, third chakra, Anahat, Vishuddhi, and that way up. Swamiji talks about a system where there is a direct connection between some of these chakras.
Okay.
And through a method of purification, you can actually activate where the lower chakra connects with the corresponding higher chakra.
Okay.
Then the higher chakra energy descends from above and connects with the lower chakra. And now, when that happens, the circuit is complete.
Okay.
And now that's not the end goal either.
Yeah.
That is just the first step. When you are able to do that, then that starts the dynamo.
Okay. Are they all connected in different ways? Or I'm like, in my head, I'm picturing kind of a spiral between all of them, but how?
So there's a whole system.
There's a whole system.
There's a whole system. and if you want, you can, on Amazon, there's a book we published a few years ago. We're working on a whole series of publications called Time Meditation by Swami Vidyanand.
Okay.
But basically, I can give an example. For example, your first chakra and your seventh chakra are directly connected. So which is why we have a dynamic practice and a still practice. The dynamic practice is in the posture, we observe the pressure. And then when we come back to stillness, we don't jump into the next posture. We hold in that stillness. And if you give a good purification, when you remove the blockages around your lower chakra, that lower chakra energy comes up and rises and connects with your top chakra.
Wow.
Directly, without having to go through each step.
Each step. Okay, well, Time Meditation on Amazon. Definitely pick that one up for any reading. I know I'm going to, but I encourage everyone else listening to also, because this is fascinating. And I feel like my question, I could probably spend days or weeks studying just this one thing is my bet, probably. So you have this title, Yogi Raj, and from my understanding, it's a title that is not lightly given. What's that process look like, and what does this title mean to you?
So the process is, there's no process. The process is very simple. The Guru gives it to you. That is the only process. That's the only way to get any title, whether it's Yogi or Yogi Raj or Swami or any of these titles. They are given by a master when they feel that you are ready for a certain, and the title represents a certain level of, I don't think it's the best word, but the only word I can think of right now is accomplishment in your yogic journey. And so Swamiji gave me that title, and it means, well, literally it means yogi, and Raj means king among yogis. But it basically means that it's a person, a master for people who are yogis. So because that's that's what he has blessed me with his grace and with the Divine Mother's blessings. I have that knowledge and ability to guide yogis who want to connect more deeper within.
That's amazing. I love hearing the process is simple. They just give it to you, but obviously with an incredible amount of training and knowledge and practice as well. So what do you feel like is the biggest misconception modern wellness culture gets wrong about the chakras?
Oh, so many. So many. I think the whole approach is a bit comical. One tends to either aggrandize it, or one tends to, especially I noticed in California, people very casually talk about, say, oh, my chakras are opening because you're feeling good or something, Yeah. So the word, the real chakra, when it's opening, it changes your life. You can't be the same after that. And I think the biggest misconception is this either ways. It's kind of a glorification, right? But if you read any books about chakras, kundalini, they will regurgitate the same things that are in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, in other texts, older texts, Sanskrit texts, translated. And then there is a very famous book by my grand guru, my Swamiji's guru, called Kundalini Tantra, by Paramhans Swami Satyanand Saraswati. He's the founder of the Bihar School of Yoga. And in that book, there is a detailed description. This chakra, this is the mandala, this is the aspect, right? And so people that's their understanding of chakras, associating them with colors. There's truth in all of this, but that does not help you. Each chakra has a practical implication in your life. Your first chakra is literally what keeps you present on this planet.
Yeah.
It creates your physical body. So your whole physical body is your first chakra, not just one location, right? Your whole body is an expression. But human mind has a linear tendency of thinking, right? And it wants things to be either this or that. It starts to get confused when it's multiple things at once.
Yeah.
And so I think the biggest misconception is that it's been aggrandized, and it's really a very practical thing, which is my mission, is to teach this to people, is how it affects your day-to-day life. And in terms of practice, I think the thing that is often not helpful is people are forcefully trying to open chakras. There are some practices. It's easy to activate Kundalini in your first chakra. Anybody can do it. The hard part is how to deal with it, how to channelize that energy and move it upwards. And often that requires preparation and guidance, right?
Yeah.
And so those are some of the things that are coming to my mind right now.
Definitely. I mean, I feel like it's just kind of a common theme where multiple realities exist at the same time. Like one thing can be true and also 10 other things can be true at the same time. And I feel like in life nowadays, it's very, very linear. And it's like, it's just this one reality, but it's like, no, this is just one perception of a multitude of realities that are all real at the same time. So it's definitely something that I see not just here, but like everywhere. And it's really an interesting aspect as well, but it's really interesting. So your geographical journey also has been really unique. You've gone from Mumbai to New Zealand and now in California, first in Northern California at Stanford and now here in LA. What was the journey like making shifts in all of these locations? Because they are very big changes to make in your life when you change from one location to another. Your physical environment has such an impact on how you're living your life and who you are. So what was that like? And also, did you find that the energy or spiritual hunger of people changed drastically among the different cultures that you were experiencing?
Interesting. So even before I left Mumbai, I had quite a few years of wandering. I spent a lot of time with Dilip Chitre and his wife Viju. They're like, they're like my parents when I was having a tough time in my relationship with my parents, and because I decided to leave art school. And if you're familiar with Indian families, you must have a degree, and they could not understand why I would let go of such a great opportunity. And so I think first I went to Pune, lived with Dilip on and off, would keep coming back to Mumbai and still be with my parents for a few months at a time. And then when I left my job, my corporate job in Mumbai, then I was just, I would go for assignments outside, and then I spent a small stint in Delhi, because I just didn't want to be in Mumbai. And then when my wife and Disha and we got married, and so her father wanted her to go and study in New Zealand because she had a residency there and she wanted to study to be a teacher. And so he said, why not go to New Zealand and learn to study there? And so that's where we went. We thought we'd be there for maybe a couple of years or 3 years or so,
Yeah.
but we ended up staying almost 10 years.
Wow.
And in New Zealand, I did all sorts of things. It was not an easy journey. I could not get any work, and which I've experienced the challenge of being a colored immigrant in a culture that is very shy and not often open. It took some while till I found the right people. So I did everything in New Zealand. I worked as the first job I could get was that of a construction worker, because I literally couldn't find anything else, and we ran out of money. And so I worked as a construction worker. Then I had an accident at my job site, and when I brought it up with my employer, they threatened to bring lawyers. And so I said, okay, this is not the best job, because A, it's not safe, and B, I got hurt, and their response was, well, do you want to talk to a lawyer? And then after that, I got a job as a cleaner in a hospital, which was, I think, one of the best jobs I've ever had.
Really?
It was like a full 8 hours of meditation, and I would clean with a prayer. So every day when I would go into the ward in the hospital, I would go into the cleaning cupboard or closet, and there I would have a little shrine where I would meditate. I'd go before my shift, I'd meditate, and I'd invite the divine, saying, Divine, you come and clean with me or through me.
Yeah.
And I would have some of the best spiritual experiences I've had is in that presence of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo as I was cleaning a toilet or a hospital ward. And simultaneously, I was teaching at this retreat center in the evening. So I would do a cleaning job all day, and then the evenings, few days a week, I would drive an hour and a half to go and teach at this retreat center.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I did that for about 9 months before I then transitioned into education, where I was working as a para-educator for a special ed school. And in that process, simultaneously my practice was growing, at the retreat center, and eventually I ended up running the retreat center. So then I left this job as a para-educator. I was running the retreat center. I ran the New Zealand International Yoga Festival for a couple of years. I organized Voices of Sacred Earth, which was one of the largest indigenous festivals in New Zealand. We had beautiful property, 19 acres, 5 yoga studios, 3 outdoor locations for yoga, 120 full-time residents. During festivals, we had 600 to 800 people on site.
Wow.
And I enjoyed that. I was thriving on, because I had a free hand to manage the place, and my expertise is in bringing different people of different traditions together. And so it started becoming a center where people from all lineages could come. And because they knew that I understood where they're coming from and what they need and all of that. And it was also a center for volunteers. So we'd have woofers who basically came and worked in exchange for accommodation.
Wow.
And so I was managing that retreat, the retreat center there for about almost 2 years, while teaching and while running my trainings there. And then I got a job. A friend reached out to me from my days teaching special ed in the school system.
Yeah.
I had a natural ability to help people with special needs, and so I got offered a job as a lecturer in the Unitech Institute of Technology, where I would teach health and well-being. And in health and well-being, I would do yoga, meditation, mindfulness. Then I would also teach life skills and work skills to adults with disability, especially neurodiversity of any kind, autism, Down syndrome, the whole spectrum. And so that was really cool. I did that for 3 years. Got a couple of awards while I was there for the work we were doing. It was really fun, challenging at the same time, but really rewarding. In fact, I still have students from there who I do weekly yoga classes with on Zoom.
Wow.
Because they love it so much, especially this practice that I shared with you, because it puts you in the present without the pressure of having to try. And so at the end of that, in the middle of all of that, we tried to move to India, and then the pandemic happened. And so at that time when the pandemic happened and we had bought our tickets, we had sold our cars, we had given away the house and all of that. But through God's grace, I was working, my wife's also a teacher, and so we were both teaching in a school. And they were like, we'd love to have you back. Don't go yet. Who knows what's going to happen in the world? It may be years before the world opens up. And so we stayed back, and we continued working. And New Zealand was the best place to be in during the pandemic.
Yeah, I could see that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's just a great place to be in general.
It is. It's really beautiful. So in that process, Swamiji had said back then, saying, okay, now it's all changed. You won't come to India now. First you go to America. You're going to do some work in America. And then after that, we'll see. And I'm like, the US doesn't hand out visas like candy.
Yeah.
And he said, don't worry, that's not your problem. Just focus on whatever you're doing right now. And so then in 2024, my wife and I came here because Swamiji said to come and explore the possibility of what's happening. So we came as tourists. I did a few meetings. We have a lot of family on either coast. So we hung out with families, and then my wife's aunt said, you guys should move here. This is the place to be for yoga. And then it reminded us what Swamiji had said 4 years or 5 years ago, saying that, we're going to move to the US. And so we went back in February. She applied for a job pretty soon. As soon as we went back, by end of March, she had a job. By April, we had a visa.
Wow.
And by July, we were here in 2024.
All at once.
Yeah, this is like 6 months. And we ended up in Palo Alto.
Yeah.
And because we were in Palo Alto, I had no idea what Stanford University was. I just had heard the name, and I knew it was an expensive university.
Yeah.
That's about it. Interestingly, the first place we went to in the US was Stanford, because we were so jet lagged. Disha's uncle, who lives in Los Altos, he was like, you guys aren't sleeping. I'm going to take you to an amazing place. And then we went to Stanford, and beautiful campus.
Yeah.
And so I remember thinking then, oh, this is the kind of university I'd like to work at.
Yeah.
This is so cool. And so then once we were in Palo Alto, so I said, okay, well, when in Rome, So I went to Stanford looking for conscious people.
Yeah.
And I met this phenomenal human being called Brett Waters. He doesn't teach conscious living. He teaches business and entrepreneurship.
Kind of links sometimes.
Yeah. But he really embodies some amazing consciousness. And I joined one of his courses that he has there with Stanford Continuing Studies. So to learn, because Swamiji had given me this task of bringing the World Yoga Federation to the United States. And I am a yogi, I'm not a business guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, Swamiji, probably better people to do this kind of work. And he said, no, if I wanted business people, then I would have given it to a business person.
Yeah.
I want you to do it. This is your job. And so I went to learn about this and about how to set up the organization, and I had no idea about the whole capitalist economy and stuff. And in that process, Brett gave me the opportunity to teach the practice to his students while I was studying with him, and they loved it.
Yeah.
And so then he invited me to teach his students even when I wasn't studying with him anymore.
Wow.
And so I did a few workshops for them, and eventually started teaching with Stanford Recreation. And then we moved to LA. And so for the last, since August, I have been flying in and out between LA and San Francisco every week.
Wow.
I just stopped a few weeks ago because it was getting a lot and ticket prices are just crazy now.
Yeah.
And then we came to LA, and LA has been so fantastic. It's just starting to open up. I teach here at the Yoga Nest. I wrote an email to Mary Lou. I wrote it to about a few studios, a handful of them, and Mary Lou responded. She called me, and I could feel energetically she got what I was trying to do. So we've been collaborating since February last year.
Okay.
Since November last year, since February, yeah. So my first workshop here was in February 25.
Wow. Okay.
And then I did another one when I came to teach at the Yoga Expo.
Okay.
And finally, we moved here in August, and we started the Venice Yoga Festival, because if you're familiar with Venice, the beauty of Venice is that Venice has been like a very significant location for the culture of humanity, really. Jim Morrison and Ray Manzarek reunited just a few 100 meters that way,
Yeah.
on the beach, one day. And that's when Jim Morrison was walking past and he saw Ray and they started talking, and then, the rest is history.
Yeah.
So across the street in Hanano, this is where Jim Morrison and the Doors used to hang out. Some of the most iconic bands kind of started off in that little bar.
Yeah.
And the Hare Krishna movement really took seed from Venice Beach. Those guys coming and chanting at Venice Beach. The whole counterculture movement, the hippie movement, all of that come from here. And then after the pandemic, and what's happened economically is, because it became such a center, people started buying property here.
Yeah.
And then the people who are artists and creative people, they can't afford to live here anymore.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, you have the crisis with the housing and all kinds of other problems. And so this whole place kind of started really, going downhill. And then finally they did some cleaning up. And so that's what my goal with Mary Lou was. How can we restart that energy? And so I said, okay, one of the ways we can do that is by bringing the community together for yoga. And we had a whole day of kirtan. So at the Venice Yoga Festival, there was almost non-stop kirtan from morning till evening, right outside here.
Yeah.
And we had yoga classes and a marketplace and all of that. And I couldn't believe no one had started a Venice Yoga Festival, to be honest, when I came here. And I said, well, no one's done it. Mary Lou, what do you think? Shall we do it? She's like, yeah, let's do it. And, she's really excited about it. And so thanks to her and the Venice Sphere Association, we were able to put that together. And this year we're going to make it a bigger event.
What's happening this year?
So we're just talking to the city. It's maybe end of September or mid-October, somewhere between that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I will be back. I will be back
For
at that
sure.
point for it. So I'm really excited. But yeah, it's definitely an epicenter here. And I think there is definitely an energy here that is unparalleled and unmatched. I mean, I've felt very called to it here. It was kind of an accident, but just coming here, like energetically, as soon as I was here for maybe a couple of days, I was like, oh, this is the spot for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just energetically knew, and I was getting a lot of signs from God or the universe or some sort of greater being power that this is the spot for me. But it's definitely something energetically that's definitely here for sure. What drew you to settle in Los Angeles, and what kind of energy does this bring out in your own practice? But one thing I'm also curious about is that, there is such a wellness culture here in Venice Beach and in California in general. What do you feel like is your honest perspective on this California yoga culture versus your traditional lineage in India? And where do you feel like the West does it beautifully, and where do you feel like it kind of misses the mark?
So where it does it beautifully, I think, is how it's made it popular. It's really made the world looks to America. The world looks to Los Angeles. Most of the wellness trends that have gone global have at some point had to have a footprint here.
Yeah.
Most of them. And there's a culture of embracing new stuff, right? And trying something new. And so I think that's where it really thrived, in packaging it and in making it accessible to different people from different cultures. And also, this is not the studio culture where you go somewhere to do a practice.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Back in India, people have, I go to this yoga class 2 days a week or something. But now it's developing in India as well. But that culture of, it was there in ashrams and all, but in terms of for the regular folks, that culture wasn't there. Like, I love that idea that people are like, that's my studio. I go there 4 days a week, I go there and then I have a shower and I head to work and, and that's my day.
Yeah.
And that's part of their life. I love that. I love how they've been able to make it commercially successful as well. Although that's completely different now. Post-pandemic, studios are really struggling, especially yoga studios. So those are the things I like, and how America has made yoga popular. It's made cool.
Yeah.
Right? It's made it really cool to do yoga. Right? When I was a kid and my mom forced me to do yoga, I was like, but I did it because I had to. I was not, she forced me to.
Yeah.
But, now it's cool.
Yeah.
And where I found from a traditional perspective, it was very fascinating and sometimes cringe for me to, especially as an Indian master, to come and see. I think there's a lot of superficiality. Yoga especially is becoming more of a term and a trend, which I think has a larger purpose. My personal belief is that even the word yoga is a mantra. It means to become one with the source, one with the divine, right? So if people want to express that through clothes or through apparel or through branding or through jewelry or whatever it is that they want, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Well, but of course you have your beer yogas and your gun yogas and all of those absurdities, but even those are experiments, right? People want, for me, in the long, Swami Vivekananda said this beautiful thing, which is in my track. If you go on Spotify and search Yogi Rajat Karsh, in my track I have a recording of him saying that, crooked as it may seem, all lead to thee.
All lead to thee?
Yeah, and to thee is the divine, right? So all the paths, crooked as they may seem, winding around and all of that, but they all lead. So even I see the purpose in that, but I do also see the appropriation, the cultural appropriation, and there is people have read yama niyamas in the yoga training book, and that's all they know about it.
Yeah.
They don't know the larger context, and then they start using them like they have some great authority.
Right.
And then I see that people take traditional practices and they get creative with it. So when I'm in a more higher state of consciousness, I look at it as children, right? If you give children a pen, they're gonna not write ABC. They're not gonna write poetry immediately.
They're coloring outside the lines.
Exactly, and they're gonna do their own interpretation of how to use a pen and paper, right?
Yeah.
So, but then on the other hand, I see, I'm like, oh my God, one of the biggest things was there's the whole concept of playlists, right? Absurd. I'm trying to go within, and there's this lot of noise around, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, that's very disturbing because I practiced in silence.
Yeah.
Yes, environmental noise, but that is natural. Also, when you use music, the music has a vibration. I'm trying to be free from my physical, mental, emotional vibrations so that I can connect with my higher nature. And then if I'm listening to a song, and a lot of it is beautifully done. I have seen some classes where the playlist is so beautifully orchestrated that by the end of your, the peak of the practice, there's like this lead guitar going and people are like, yeah. But this is not connecting with the higher nature. This is distracting you.
Yeah.
And then, which is fine, but so those are some of the things I struggle with. And also, I noticed the American style of teaching yoga is the teachers talk non-stop, right? And which is, I've met monks who don't talk. You just sit in their presence and then you meditate, right? There are places where you're not allowed to talk, shrines, temples, or meditation spaces. And then to be in a practice where someone is talking non-stop, right? And so that again distracts. And often that talk is something coming from, talking about the sutras and again, many times I find that there's a lot of cultural appropriation, with that. And it's sometimes Americans are so confident in the way they put it across that I question, do I really know that? Then I'm like, wait a minute, no, yeah, that's not what it is,
This is just a creative take on something
exactly.
very traditional.
Yeah. So that's where I fluctuate. So sometimes I'm okay with it, and other times I feel sad to see that being done with my culture and with my practice and all of those things.
Yeah, it's definitely a differentiation. I feel like as far as culturally, from my perception of it at least, it's yoga is seen more as like a workout as opposed to, yes, they call it a practice, but primarily I feel like it's kind of a workout for people. And then secondarily, the benefits of it, if that's spiritually or mentally, can sit on the back burner and is not the primary focus a lot of times, or at least that's my experience with like the US culture with it. And that's just kind of like where it leans for, I feel like, people here. But how do you feel like living in Venice has informed your own practice?
I definitely finish on time. Most times. Coming not just Venice in US, because I realize people are very particular about timings here. And, previously I would never look at the clock, but, because that's not the way I teach. So one thing that way, I think I'm still figuring it out and still new in this space. I'm trying to understand what people are able to connect with, and I'm trying to find more people who are interested in a deeper practice, not just the better part, better body, not just like what I learned this new word in LA, not a woo-y kind of woo-woo version of yoga, but a real practice and people who are serious about it. People who are serious and by serious, I don't mean like, oh, I'm serious. I mean like they are dedicated to themselves. So they want to really know who they are. They want to know the divine, right? And so I find that I've met a few really amazing people here who really practice that sincerely. And we built a beautiful Kirtan community here. And so I really enjoy that. That's one of the ways I love Kirtan, but it's not been my practice, for many years. Maybe for the last 10 years, it's not been part of my spiritual practice to do it publicly. Whereas coming here, we had the 24-hour Kirtan marathon that Mary Lou and I organized. And that was amazing because we had more than 30 artists going non-stop for 24 hours. And every week almost we have a Kirtan event here. And that is one thing that I've started doing more of in Venice.
Yeah, there are definitely some really cool activations and ways to bring community together, but definitely finding, and I think that's just something that people talk about in LA in general, is that it can be very surface level. Like it can be a mile wide and an inch deep, but there are people who really want to get to know themselves and really do want to develop a real practice and have that discernment within themselves, as opposed to just this like quick fix yogi girl, like go into her, her 7 a.m. class before work. There's definitely a difference there. Is there a balance between honoring your traditional lineage and bringing and honoring the modern culture of Venice and the United States?
I think where I'm more flexible is in how I'm presenting it in terms of the marketing or the advertising or the poster or the title of the class or these things. First I'm like, it's time meditation, just put time meditation. And then people are like, what is time meditation? I don't know about this. Yeah, because it's a new practice and it's amazing, but it's new. And it's not one of those things that Madonna is doing so that we all know about it.
Yeah.
It's thousands of people practice it worldwide, but they're like your regular folks, who are quietly doing it, and even our founder hasn't, he's very particular about not wanting to glamorize it in a way that's not, fitting in with what he wants to do and his way of teaching. So right now I'm still exploring. I changed the title. Sometimes I call it mindful movement and meditation, right? And then previously people would come for meditation, but they're like, oh, but we're doing postures. Is this a yoga class? But yoga and meditation is part of yoga.
Yeah.
It's only more recent that people distinguish, like that think of yoga as postures. When I say more recent, I mean more post 1920s.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm changing. I also adapt the practice to, like, for example, I teach at the YMCA, and there we just have 1 hour in which I do a smaller version of the Kriya that they can practice for themselves and then expand it from there. So we do like a 30-minute, 40-minute, study where I talk as a lecture, and then Q&A, and then we do 20-minute practice. And so that's kind of, whereas here, when I teach on Saturdays, the whole class is a full practice,
Yeah.
So those are some of the ways. I have been very conscious about being true to myself and not changing what I am doing so that I get more people. That's very important to me.
Yeah.
Swamiji says always, he says, one good student is better than 1,000 people who are just, mile wide, inch deep.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. That makes a lot of sense. So our audience, they're high achievers, they're wellness oriented, they're movement oriented. Some may consider themselves athletes, not all. If someone listening right now is feeling really disconnected from their body or their practice or their spirituality, what are a couple like micro practices and shifts they can make in their daily life to begin shifting their own energy?
So 2 things. First thing is to invoke the presence of the divine when you are sitting for your practice. This is very important, what we did at during the practical part, right? To actually call out. That presence is there. Yes, it's there within us, it's there around us, but we also have a beautiful power to forget. And that presence does not impose itself on us. It's infinite, so it has infinite time. It says, if not in this lifetime, there's always another one.
Yeah.
And so whatever you're doing, practice, whether you're going to go to the gym or whether you're going to do some meditation or yoga, before you start, pause. And just like we did in the practice, call out to this presence saying, oh, great spirit or divine, or if you like Krishna or Jesus or whoever you connect with, talk to that presence and saying, I'm doing this for my higher good. Please come and guide me.
Yeah.
And then start your practice. That is one. And then the other thing I would say is from the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, whatever you do, offer unto me. So whatever work you do, whether it is writing an email or cleaning your house or whatever you are doing, or teaching a yoga class, do that as an offering to the divine. Yeah, so remind yourself when you're doing that, that this is not for me, this I am offering to the divine.
Yeah.
And those are transformational. Those two things will completely create a shift in consciousness. And often I get told, okay, I don't know the divine. How do I invite? So, which is why what practice we did today, just placing your hands here and Om and silence. Just do this 5 times, 10 times. Forget the divine. Just say, I don't know what you are. I want to know. And do this practice. Let me know. Put it in the comments. Reach out to Sasha. Or if you find me online, I'd love to hear what you do with this.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. I think both those practices are so powerful. And even just with anything you do, like stopping and pausing and taking a second before jumping into something, and like having intention before you go into something is really powerful. If that's like you're eating or doing any sort of thing, like stopping, pausing, and thinking about it. And then secondarily, I think what in my mind, what it boiled down to is just being in the energy of giving, and giving unconditionally without the expectation to receive, and giving love, energy, whatever you have to give, without any sort of, oh, I'm doing XYZ to get something, I'm doing this thing to receive something. It's just like, what can you give and how can you provide value in any which way is such a powerful thing. And to be able to really sit in that is both really powerful practices for sure. Those are
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's absolutely going to sit with me. If you could boil down your ultimate mission down to a single core message, what would that look like, or what would that be?
My mission? My mission is to be of service and to be a good instrument of the divine. Whatever the divine wants me to do, I want to be able to do that, and that's my primary objective.
Yeah.
And then externally, I have I do a bunch of stuff, but all of that's also connected with work that my guru gives me,
Right.
like the World Yoga Federation.
Wow. It all goes back to that second lesson is just to give. Yes, to give. This is more a question for like the Visualize Meditations podcast, because we specialize in visualization here. Is there anything that you used to dream of or visualize, if that was in your actual meditation practice or outside of your practice, that is now just like a normal part of your life, but that used to be a dream or a vision that you used to have?
So when you say dream or vision, I think what I always go back to Pondicherry, to the ashram of Sri Aurobindo, to the Samadhi, to the Mother's Room. Those are places that I feel most strongly connected. Even right now, I'm feeling fantastic just thinking about it. And those are places that I've physically been, and they have a very, if you visit Pondicherry, I highly recommend visiting Sri Aurobindo Ashram. There's a very special presence there. And so for me, that place is where I tend to go back to if I'm visualizing, or that's where I end up going. I have had an experience where I was visualizing that. I was sitting in the Mumbai center and I was visualizing the place. I was thinking how wonderful it would be to be there. And I was actually transported there in my astral body. And it was amazing. It was like, a completely different experience than visualizing and, being there. So that's what I keep going back to,
Yeah, it's special. It's like it's very powerful.
But if you want to visualize something, I think I would recommend, not should, but what I would recommend is the 5 elements and or anything that's endless.
Anything that's endless.
And like endless nature, like endless trees, endless ocean, endless sky, endless space,
Yeah.
Those kind of things lift your energy higher.
Yeah, like vastness.
Vastness.
Yes, like
Yeah.
open spaces, vastness. And then so visualize like big open spaces to raise your vibration and raise your energy.
Yeah.
And then also the 5 elements.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm inspired now to create some meditations based around those.
Cool.
If people want to learn more about your work and what you're doing, where can they find you? Where can they learn more about what you're doing?
I think the best way to find stuff about the World Yoga Federation and me would be to go on Instagram and go to World Yoga Federation or at World Yoga Federation. And if you want to know more about me, there's at Yogi Raj Utkarsh. So those are the 2 places where you can get. I think those are the best places right now to get information.
Perfect. I'll make sure to link those in the show notes and then put that in the description, and everything on social media will definitely be collaborating on in the future. But thank you so much for coming on and having this really beautiful conversation and practice with me. It's been such an honor, honestly, to sit and chat, and it's been really enjoyable, honestly. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sasha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. We'll catch you guys next week on the Visualize Meditations podcast. If you want to catch more about what we're getting up to today, everything is available for you in the description, the show notes, wherever you want to find us. We'll catch you guys next week. Bye. I hope today's episode left you feeling inspired and aligned. Make sure you're following the show so you never miss out on our weekly meditations or solo chats. I love connecting with you guys. Let's talk on Instagram and TikTok at Visualize Meditations, and we will catch you guys next week on the Visualize Meditations podcast. Bye.